Good morning, y'all. Welcome into another edition of DNVR Rams Live. As always, I am your host, Justin Michael. Excited to talk hoops, to talk football. Got a loaded Halloween show for you. A nice cold morning. I was joking before the show with production that it's a rite of passage. These kids have got to go out there and freeze while they're trick-or-treating. If you grow up in Colorado, you just know, like, come Halloween, there's likely going to be snow. It's going to be cold. You might as well just plan your costume around it. I mean, I used to be a football player or like a hockey player every time because it's easy. You know, you can wear a coat, wear a hoodie under the jersey, put a bunch of shoulder pads on there. Gotta think smart when it comes to the Colorado Halloweens. We're gonna set the scene for a big return to Reno for CSU football. We're going to talk about this matchup with Nevada, whether there's still bad blood, some of the keys. I'm going to play an interview with associate head coach / quarterback coach. It's a mouthful, Matt Mumme. He kind of talks about the change in offensive philosophy. I was curious, just given, his dad obviously created the air raid. That I think that's a big part of why he's been on Norvell's staff. They've shifted big time in terms of the schemes they're running. I wanted to get his thoughts on that, what he's seen from Braden and his growth, his thoughts on the return to Reno, all that fun stuff here. Dylan in the Toyota chat wants to know, no costume. I'm not a Halloween guy, admittedly. If you follow me, if you've listened to the show, I don't think it's a surprise to anyone, but I'm essentially an old man. I am a big proponent of letting people enjoy things. I'm not anti-Halloween. I'm just not going to come to your Halloween party. I'm not going to wear a costume. Not my thing. More of a Christmas, Thanksgiving guy if we're picking holidays. But again, I know a lot of people love it, and I want people to enjoy things. Let's get on track. Let's talk CSU hoops. They won the exhibition last night, 90-74 over Adams State. Was not on TV, was not streamed. I'm not going to get too in the weeds here because honestly, I just don't think there's a ton of substance when it comes to these preseason games. I don't think there's no value to them, but I think you can make a mistake if you just read too much into certain things. And honestly, I think this team's going to be up and down, especially early on in the year. They've got so many new pieces. It's going to take a while to establish some cohesion offensively and defensively. The defense was an issue last night. Rebounding was an issue. They gave up 14 offensive boards. Not ideal. Needed to communicate better, but there was also accountability post game. I think the guys owned it. Medved emphasized it a lot, but again, I don't think anybody's panicking over an exhibition before we've even gotten into November. Nique Clifford was great in this one. He had 23 points, a game high. Also had 7 rebounds and 6 assists. I think we got to put him on triple-double watch this year. There's never been a triple-double in program history. As you can see here, I got the box score up on screen. Nique Clifford is going to be a stat sheet stuffer for CSU this year. He's going to be such an integral part on both sides. I mean, he's their best rebounder. He's their best defender. And then offensively, without Isaiah Stevens, he's going to have to shoulder a lot more of the responsibility in terms of not just the scoring, but also the facilitation. And I think he started to flash his passing abilities a little bit as the season went on last year. I thought, especially in the Mountain West tournament and against Virginia, he was really, really good and showed off some of the passing skills that he possesses, with Isaiah being a little bit limited by injuries. But it was encouraging to see him have a big game. He was aggressive offensively, put his head down and got to the hoop a couple of times when things were starting to get stagnant on offense. And that's going to be a big key for CSU this year is, who do you go to when things start to break down? Last year, if you went a couple of minutes without a score, you're probably going to run a little 2-man game with Patrick Cartier or Joel Scott and run the pick and roll with Isaiah. And they were able to create so much success. This year, I think Jalen Crocker-Johnson, and as you'll hear from Medved here in just a second, is going to have to play that role where, sometimes you're kind of the 5. Sometimes you're also the power forward. You're going to have to play at the top of the key. You're going to have to play down in the paint. And you're going to have to be really versatile, which if last night's game is any indication, he is. We highlighted that when they signed him, that we thought he was going to be a big-time addition for the program. He's still young. But he's a guy that can stretch the floor for you a little bit. He's not hesitant to put it up. He's got nice touch. He definitely looks the part physically. I think he's going to be able to bang down low in the paint, and he's got the touch to finish off the glass. I'm really intrigued by him. Again, it's an exhibition, not gonna flip out too much. But Crocker Johnson going for 20 in his unofficial debut was encouraging. I like Bowen Bourne. I like the way he moves out there. Reminds me a little bit stylistically of Jamal Murray, just with how it looks when he's dribbling the basketball. He's a lefty, so it's a little bit different. He had a play where he drove baseline, was able to absorb the contact from a much bigger individual, finish off the glass. Also had a transition three where Nique's out on the break. He just kind of dishes it out to him. Bourne drills it. Going to want to see a lot more of that as the season goes on. And I think he can be a pretty big factor for this team, especially on the offensive side. I do wonder defensively, is he going to be able to hang with some bigger athletes? But he's a guy that can definitely put the ball in the hoop. And the nice thing is you have some versatility. I think you can kind of cover some of the defensive deficiencies with some of the smaller guys with the length that you're able to throw out there. You don't have a true rim protector, but I mean, you've got Bemba, who is going to be, I think, impacted at times by his health. He's had a hip issue that goes back to last year. I think it's going to be one of those things that's just kind of a day to day. I think there'll be stretches where he's really effective, and I think there'll be stretches where he's limited. In those times, I think you can put Ethan Morton out there. He's got a lot of length. He's a guy that'll basically play 1 through 5 for you this year. As you saw last night, true freshman Kyle Jorgensen, they're gonna lean on him. He's got some, baby Jokic, JJ Avila-esque qualities to him. A guy that's skilled, maybe isn't the most explosive athlete in the world, but is thick, is strong. You're not going to be able to move him. I think he'll have some lumps defensively as he adjusts to the pace of play. But he's really skilled, and the staff is really excited about his potential there. I think a lot of these guys are really intriguing. I mean, a lot of the young guys in general, I think these next couple years have great potential if you can hang on to them. I don't think a ton of freshmen are going to play this season just because of the depth you have. They're probably deeper than last year, top to bottom, although maybe not. I mean, the top end pieces on that team last year were obviously really, really incredible. But just kind of going through some more stats here. Like I said, we got 23 out of Nique, 20 out of Jalen Crocker Johnson, 14 out of Jalen Lake. I like that he looked aggressive in this one. I think he's going to be a really important factor for CSU this year if they're going to push for the postseason. I've talked about it a lot. He's got a gorgeous jump shot, and we've seen that be a big factor in some big wins over the years. Injuries have definitely slowed him down at times, but I thought it was good that he put the ball on the floor. He was looking to, get to the hoop. I didn't think he shied away from any of the physicality or anything like that. He looked really good, and I'm intrigued by what he can be for this team this year. Him and Nique are going to have to make a big leap from what they were last year, and both those guys were good last year. I mean, but that's just the position you're in, given the amount of production you lost from last year, the amount of experience minutes, all of that stuff. We've already highlighted you got to be better defensively. You've got to rebound better. Got to be better at the free throw line. That was a big factor for Adams State kind of hanging around. They went 16 of 16 at the line. CSU only 12 of 19 at the free throw line. That was not great. What was, though, and what I thought was especially encouraging, and you're going to hear this from Niko Medved here momentarily, CSU had 23 assists on I think it was 35 made field goals. That's, CSU's basketball. That's their style of play. That's what they want to do. Sharing is caring. And what was awesome was every single player that saw the floor in this one had at least one assist. 7 had multiple. You had a couple of guys that really dished it out well. I mean, Nique had a great game, but he wasn't the only one. You've got Jalen Lake had 5 assists, a couple other guys with 2. I mean, I just thought the offensive mentality was in the right place. They were a little bit disorganized at times, and I think that's going to be something you see. I think there'll be stretches where they look really good, and I think there'll be some stretches, particularly in the half court, where you feel the loss of an all-time facilitator in Isaiah Stevens. I mean, this team's going to be good in transition. They're athletic. They did a good job of forcing points off turnovers last night. 27 points off of turnovers, 21 fast break points, and 50 points in the paint. So they did a good job of attacking the hoop when they had those opportunities. That's something I want to see more of, especially with Nique Clifford. And you've got some guys that can get to the hoop. Cayenne tried to throw a poster dunk down in the second half that, frankly, I didn't even know he was capable of. So that was encouraging. Kashawn Williams had an alley-oop play that was kind of ugly, but he managed to get it in the hoop. He's got some ups too. So well, they have some guys that are a little bit undersized. I think they're explosive. And I think they've got some versatility with what they're going to be able to throw out at opponents this season. I'm intrigued. I don't think it's a situation where you should go into the season where it's just a flat out guarantee that you think they're going to be in the NCAA tournament. I do think they're like a borderline NCAA tournament team, and if they can gel early, especially, and then close strong, and we know that Niko Medved coach teams are going to be better in February than they are come November. They always improve. I think there's an opportunity for this group to, make a little bit of noise, especially in a league that I think will be very competitive, will be solid, but maybe isn't quite as deep top to bottom as it was a year ago. I'm excited. I'm really excited for basketball season. It's weird to have so many guys that I don't really have a relationship established with yet. So that's going to be fun to get to know some of these guys more. We're obviously going to have some of them on the show. I'll write about them. I'm really excited to learn more about these transfers. I'm excited to see how this team can potentially grow. But one of the things that I think is going to be really tough is just establishing everybody's roles, because you've got a lot of guys that can, go, 2 through 4, 1 through 5, even in some instances. They're Swiss Army knives. But are you jack of all trades and masters of none? That is kind of one of my questions. Can you balance having this many experienced guys? Are people willing to accept smaller roles? All of these are going to be tough challenges for the staff. But I do think there is some talent there. They're going to be able to throw more length at teams than they were a year ago. And I think when they figure things out from a cohesion standpoint, particularly defensively, I think there's an opportunity to, get out and run on teams, to take advantage of that athleticism that you have. And then, hopefully some guys can shoot the ball with some consistency. That's been one of the things that's been kind of up and down for the Rams the last couple of years. The numbers are really good, but I think if you watch them every game, there are really streaky stretches, both positively and negatively. They need Nique to, maybe he's not going to shoot it at like 45% from deep like he did early on last season, but can you be north of like 38, 39% and hit a couple a game? Can Jalen Lake be a 40% 3-point shooter for you? And then what kind of production can you get out of guys like Bowen Bourne, potentially Kashawn Williams, if he can stay healthy? While he's a guy that's scored and has played, at a high level, at the D1 level, you got to remember, guys, he's had back-to-back season-ending injuries. He's played very little basketball in the last couple of years. It's going to be a bit of a process for him as he gets back into like true playing shape and adjusting to a big transition here, coming over to CSU. But I think the future is bright. I'm excited. I'm going to play Niko Medved post game here in just a second. He answers some questions from, there were only a small handful of us. I was there. Kevin Lytle was there. Damon Cook from the Collegian. He's done a solid job. He asked a couple questions as well. So we're going to play some post game audio from Niko Medved before we transition into the football side. But real quick, guys, life gets chaotic. It gets stressful between work, between social media, just everything that gets thrown our way. It can be overwhelming, and that's why our friends at Coors Light, they encourage you to choose a chill mindset. Why not turn out a rained out barbecue into a house party? Play charades or something inside. Make the most of every opportunity, and just do the little things in life to make sure you're choosing that chill mindset each and every day. Then when you do, kick back and enjoy that mountain cold refreshment. When the mountains turn blue, it's as cold as the Rockies. Cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold packaged for a smooth finish. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. I also want to shout out the homies at Game Time. Game Time is changing the game. I mean, they're innovative. They're finding ways to make it easier than ever for the consumer. They've got tickets to everything: sports, comedy, theater, you name it, they've got it. And what's awesome is with their new feature, Game Time Picks, it's easier than ever to find the best deals possible. They're going to filter out all the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time Picks curation makes it easier to save money, on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, you name it. The lowest price guarantee means you're getting the best deal around. Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use that code DNVR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, create an account, redeem that code DNVR for $20 off. Download Game Time. What time is it? Game time. We're going to transition over to football here in just a second. But here's just a couple of minutes of Niko Medved talking about that win over Adams State and just a couple of thoughts on the team's performance.
It was good to get this game. I don't even want to say out of the way, but last year we didn't play an exhibition game. This year I thought it'd be really important to play one. I think it's always different when the lights come on. We got so many new faces, and you get the starting lineup and the video, and the fans are out there, and the PA and all that stuff. It's just a little bit different, and so I thought it was good for us to do that. Obviously there were some good things. There were a lot of things that were choppy. I think the thing that I probably liked the most from this group was their willingness to share the ball. I think that's something that I've seen in practice. With as many new faces, I've loved that buy-in, and I didn't see guys forcing bad shots or anything. I saw guys really making the extra pass and playing unselfish. I thought that was really good. I thought after the 4 turnovers and it felt like the first 30 seconds, we kind of settled down a little bit, that way too. Obviously, we got some things to clean up on the glass and in the defensive end, but we'll learn from it and help us get ready for Monday.
The players, we're kind of talking about needing to improve defense, so I'm assuming that was a little bit of a message in the locker room. Just how much of that is a bunch of new guys needing to learn how to be tied together defensively?
I think it's some of that too, and I think these teams that we play kind of almost play like a 5-out, 5-guard sort of thing, and sometimes you got some guys kind of in some different positions defensively that are hard. And I thought we had some communication breakdown, but I think really when you look at it, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they got back a lot of their missed shots, and I think for us it was really the biggest beef I had was the defensive glass. We had some breakdowns that were inexcusable, but sometimes those things are going to happen for reasons like you said. But I thought the amount of offensive rebounds we gave up, I thought we had a lot of guys staring and watching, and that really concerned me. And the good news is sometimes it's good to have that happen to you right now. I'd rather have that happen right now than in the second regular season game or whatever. But that's something that I think we really need to get cleaned up here before Monday.
Obviously an unofficial debut, but Crocker Johnson going for 20 is probably very encouraging. What type of versatility does he bring to the table?
He's it's funny, he had a really good freshman year, but he's a young player, right? He's just a sophomore. And he's a guy too that we're really going to ask a lot of. He's kind of the one guy that's going to have to learn both the perimeter and post position for us, kind of like David had to do, like Joel Scott did for us, where he'll play some forward for us in lineups. He'll play some, P-spot, we call it, bigger lineups. And so now you got to learn 2 positions offensively and defensively, and him learning to guard a little bit better on the perimeter and all those things. But you can see he's a guy who can shoot the ball. He's got a nose for it. He can score around the rim, and he loves to play. And I think what fans are going to see from him is a kid that's just going to get better and better and better and better as the year goes on. I think he's got a really bright future.
You mentioned the ball movement. Tonight, the ball didn't really stick to one person. And I know, under your tenure here, that's ball movement has been a big thing. Is that kind of when this unit is playing at its best? It's everyone's getting a touch?
I think it's always been that way for us. I don't know. I don't have it in front of me. We were either 1 or 2 in the country in assists to field goals made last year. I think that's a fun style. I think when you get more people involved, touching the ball and sharing, I think that brings energy to your group. And so again, what I've loved in a short period of time with as many new faces as we have, I've seen them buy in, and at least today I think fans can look out and it's like, oh, well, that's how CSU basketball plays. And so that was really good to see.
Is it kind of weird to have so many options? Just given now that you don't have Isaiah out there always to run the point, that's going to be the default.
I like that option.
I'm sure. But is it a weird spot though? It's almost kind of a blessing and a curse to have this much variety.
You know what? I think we're not alone. There's so many teams in the country. I mean, I told the team, I mean, listen, we still have a lot to figure out, right? As far as just roles and on both ends of the floor and what, how do we play to our strengths? And one thing I can kind of see, and I saw it this summer, is I do think we've got some depth. I do think we got some, especially on the perimeter. I do think we've got some guys who can, put the ball in the basket. You come off the bench with a guy like Bowen who scored 1,700 points, in the Valley, in his league. That's a guy who could put the ball in the basket. Keyshawn Williams, is a guy that's averaged 18 points a game at the Division I level. Those guys can score. So I think we've got some more experience maybe coming off the bench than we've had, in years past. And that's something we're going to have to use to our advantage.
Thanks, Niko.
Big shout out to Niko Medved. He is always awesome post game, does a good job of answering every question, being insightful and thoughtful. And even, when we ask bad questions, which certainly happens, he doesn't give a bad answer, which is a very underrated quality in a coach. As Aaron said in the Toyota chat, let's transition over to the Jay Norvell Bowl, CSU Nevada. A fun fact, this is the 20th all-time meeting between the Rams and the Wolfpack. CSU leads that 14-5 all-time. Jay Norvell will have been on the sidelines for one of the teams in 30% of the matchups all-time between these two schools. He's looking to go 5-1 all-time between the two. Lost a shootout, if you remember, back in 2017 in Kansas Stadium, kind of the last hurrah, the final fun moment of that year before it all fell apart for the Rams. I ended up getting them back in a major way in Reno the next year. Norvell and that team thumped a really bad CSU team in 2018. I came into Canvas and absolutely embarrassed the Rams on senior day in 2021, ended the Steve Adazio tenure, something we are all thankful for. Since then has won his first two matchups against his old school since coming over to CSU. Looking to go 3-0 against the Wolfpack. Really, really weird, though, just the fact that he has been the head coach for that many matchups all time between these two schools. I'm not sure how often something like that would happen. Getting into some keys before I play an interview with Matt Mumme. I was fortunate to catch up with him earlier this week, pick his brain a little bit on the trip to Reno, whether there's going to be fireworks or not. I'll be honest, I don't think, at least on the field or between the staffs, there will be the same type of animosity that there has been the last couple of matchups. Ken Wilson is obviously gone. He was a dork. I almost said a curse word. I'm trying to clean up the language on here. He was a dork for lack of a better term, and he kind of started a lot of drama with Norvell. Obviously, there was some heat on the field pregame. In that trip to Reno, it was a really physical game. The Rams grinded one out. In a lot of ways, that was one of the bigger wins of the Norvell era. I think if you would have fallen to 0-5 there to begin the tenure and lost to just a terrible Nevada team, that would have been a tough one to stomach, but that was a really fun moment. The game in Canvas was kind of a snoozer, to be honest. Wasn't quite as fun. Nevada played hard. I felt like that was kind of the beginning of the ascension we've seen from Brendan Lewis. This year, he's been really good for them, and he's been a big part of what's allowed them to be much more competitive than I think any of us would have anticipated. I think that's a good place to transition into some of the keys against Nevada here. And first and foremost, you've got to stop the run. Brendan Lewis, he throws a pretty decent deep ball. And he's been better. I think, you really got to credit Matt Lubick for what they've been able to do offensively, bringing the best out of him, leaning into his strengths. For a long time, I didn't understand why they wouldn't lean into his mobility. Same deal when he was at CU. I just didn't get it. He's a big, strong guy. He runs well. Maybe he was hesitant to play that way, but it's been good for him, and it's really kind of resurrected his career here. When you look at Nevada and their big performances, they've topped 300 yards twice this season in games. Both of those were wins. Back-to-back losses, they've been held below 100 yards. Last week, they did not have Brendan Lewis. That's a big factor for them. They like to run a lot of RPO. They're trying to keep you off balance. Very similarly, to what we've seen these last couple of weeks. It's honestly been a nice buildup in terms of the competition you've had to face. I think a lot of it is going to be very similar with what Lewis is trying to do with what you saw against Dampier last week. Rams did a really good job of keeping Dampier in the pocket, of pressuring the quarterback without losing containment. That's going to be a big factor once again. You've got to tackle well in the open field. You've got to wrap up. You got to have success in the trenches on both sides of the ball. When Nevada's been able to generate some havoc defensively, when they've been able to run the ball, and when they've been able to dictate the tone, that's when they've been able to be competitive. When they've gotten punched in the mouth a little bit, when they've had some turnover issues, that's when they've struggled. They only have 2 games this year with multiple turnovers, only 8 on the season. They've done a good job of protecting the football overall. But they had a couple last week. They had a couple at Minnesota, I believe 3 in that loss at Minnesota. You want to win the turnover margin. Oregon State turned the ball over 4 times in their loss at Reno. That was a major reason why they ended up pissing that game away. CSU coming off of its first turnover-free performance since 2022. They had the longest streak in the FBS at one point, I think 20 straight games with a turnover, which was discouraging. They've only had 3 total games in the Norvell era without a turnover, though I will say that stat a little bit skewed, depending on which way you want to run with it, because I do think the Rams have done a better job of valuing possessions this year. They've had some fumble issues, and that's been really frustrating, but knock on wood, BFN only 1 interception over the last month. I thought he has done, I think he has done a nice job of really adjusting to a different style of play, of managing the game. It's not easy doing what he has to do right now when you're running the ball as much as CSU is, and then all of a sudden it's 3rd and 9 and you got to make a sideline throw across the field when you're not in rhythm. It's 2nd and 8 and all of a sudden you're trying to drop a 60-yard bomb in a bucket. It really isn't. I feel like the Rams have been pretty close to breaking out on a couple of more of those explosive plays. I mean, you gotta lean into a physical identity here. Hawaii went for 242 on the ground and 4 rushing touchdowns. I don't think you're going to see CSU go away from the run game, especially if they're having success. That's their MO this year. That's been a big factor in when they've been able to, score some points. But I think if they're really going to take it to the next level, if they're truly going to be a factor in the Mountain West Championship race, you've got to unleash the passing offense just a little bit. You've got to find just a little bit more consistency. I thought they were really good against San Jose State. But they've just been just off on a couple of, opportunities to stretch the field vertically. They've looked to, especially via play action the last couple of weeks. And I like that. I like that they're not shying away from it, despite that they haven't had a ton of success. Because as you can see, with Caleb Goody's big plays, with Armani Winfield and the way he can, break plays open and with his speed there, like they've got guys that are really dangerous. And if they can go from hitting 1 or 2 of those a game to like 3, 4, 5, you don't need 10. If you can just hit a small handful of them, all of a sudden, with the way that CSU is running the ball, I mean, they're going to be a really tough defensive challenge for anyone that they face, because they've got that physical identity, but they do have a lot of athleticism. They've got a quarterback that has a lot of arm strength. If they can start to stretch the field with just a tad more consistency, I think that's the big key for CSU. On top of that, though, obviously, you've got to be able to continue to protect the football. You got to value your possessions. You want to be aggressive, but you want to play within control. You don't want to be making bad decisions, forcing balls like we saw BFN do at times early on in his career. But he's done, again, a really good job of that this year. And I do want to credit him for, adjusting on the fly. I don't think a lot of people understand just how challenging it is to go from, being a guy that's been in the gun his entire career to now basically predominantly under center. Your entire view of the field changes. Obviously, it's just much different. You're running a lot more 3 and 5 step drops, and instead of being back there already, it's just a completely different style of offense. And there were some lumps along the way, and I think Torrey Horton's injuries were a big factor in that as well. But we're starting to see him establish some rapport with some of these other guys, and that's going to be a big factor for CSU. We're going to play the Matt Mumme interview here in just a second. I do want to talk to you guys about Premier Members Credit Union. It's getting more and more difficult to save money right now. That's why you need to make smart money moves like joining Premier Members Credit Union. Unlike big banks, PMCU is truly invested in its members and communities. They're a financial institution based right here in Colorado, an organization that serves the community, the Colorado community in particular. Hey, that's you. Whatever your goals, they can help. That means local branches, friendly tellers, and the tools you need to save smarter, like a reverse tier money market. It's the account you need to get ahead and stay ahead in this economy. Check out Premier Members Credit Union's reverse tier money market. It's a game changer for your finances and for your life. Why not see what they can do for you? Check out becomepremier.com and our link or our show notes to learn more. I also want to talk to you guys about UC Health and their Ready, Set, Co initiative. UC Health wants to help you and all Coloradans be their best selves, to live their healthiest lives, and to make smart decisions each and every day that little by little add up. And one of the things they're really emphasizing this year is don't sleep on sleep. You've got to get proper rest, guys. Getting that 8 hours of sleep, it's so vital for being able to function at your peak. You know, we want CSU to hit their stride here, to function at their peak down the stretch, but you want to hit your peak as an individual as well. A big part of accomplishing that, getting proper rest. You know, don't be scrolling your phone late night. Admittedly, kind of anxious for my show this morning. Did it last night, was, you know, doom scrolling the phone for like 45 minutes. And then it's not a good way to go to sleep. Put the phone down, you know, shut the TV off, all of that stuff. When you want to join UC Health's Ready, Set, Co challenge, click the link in the show notes or go to www.uchealth.org/readysetco. All right, I'm going to play an interview with Matt Mumme here, and then I'll give a couple of more thoughts on this matchup. I'll get to any questions or comments you guys may have on basketball, on football, you name it. I'll get to it. But I wanted to play this interview with Matt Mumme. He has been really incredible to me since the day that he got here. I always appreciate how thoughtful and insightful he is. You know, a lot of these coaches are just so gracious with their time. And frankly, I've covered a lot of programs where that was not the case. And that's not something that I take for granted. So a big shout out to Matt Mumme. Great dude, a really smart guy. And I really enjoy talking with him. So here is a couple of minutes of me talking with Matt Mumme, kind of picking his brain on the change in offensive philosophy, the growth he's seen from BFN, the return to Reno, and more. What are your thoughts on the direction of the offense this year? Obviously, it's been kind of a shift in ideology, running a lot more under center, running the football. It's been effective, but like, how have the quarterbacks handled that?
Yeah, they've been great, and I think it's great for them because, you know, inevitably they all dream about going to the next level and playing the NFL. So taking snaps under center is a piece of the NFL, right? You know, being able to big play action passes and stuff like that is stuff that's more West Coast and part of the NFL game. So I think they've kind of adapted to it. That, you know, I mean, that, you know, is there a little frustration of they really want to throw some, you know, some air raid concepts, but they've both done a tremendous job with it.
How challenging is it as a quarterback, you know, when you've run the ball 7 straight times, now you got to drop a 55-yard deep ball in a bucket? Like, just from a getting in a rhythm standpoint, I got to imagine that's tricky.
Well, and it's definitely a lot of pressure, right? Because that's where, you know, you're being asked to perform at a high level on something that you're only doing a few times a game, you know, and it's just a flip mentality of where we were, you know, when we were throwing it 40, 50 times a game and only running it 20 times a game. So, you know, we've kind of just switched gears and working the fundamentals of what will help make them successful on making those throws.
What have you seen in terms of Braden and his chemistry with some of these other guys? Because obviously, like, there's no replacing a receiver like Torrey Horton, but you know, we've seen Goody has 3 scores in 4 weeks. Winfield's averaging 4 catches a game over this stretch. Like, what are you seeing with the relationships there?
Yeah, it was, you know, golly, it was so painful to see Torrey go down and his senior season come to an end like it did. But, you know, I was really proud of Goody for stepping up really quickly, and, you know, and Braden found him a few times for big touchdowns. And then proud of Armani. Armani's come a long ways in a very short amount of time. So I think it's really important and key for us to keep building on those relationships those guys are having and building as we go along. And it's something that's going to last into the future.
What's the next step for this offense? I mean, we've seen obviously a lot of success on the ground, averaging about 200 yards a game. It does seem like there's been an emphasis, at least in league play, to stretch the field a little more, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, at the end of the day, we still need to – we're not hitting anywhere near our average of points per game, which is 32, you know, the coaches kind of set a goal with. And so I think we need to really fight to get closer to that, which means we're going to have to be more efficient because we're playing less plays than what we notoriously have in the past.
What kind of growth have you seen from Braden with his decision-making? I mean, only 1 interception over the last month. Obviously not as many attempts, but – it seems like he's managing the game well.
Yeah, let's knock on a lot of wood, right? Like 2 straight games without a pick. So, I mean, you know, it's all part of growing up, you know, and again, we're only throwing it 20, 25 times a game. So we've cut the attempts down, so there's not as many chances out there. But he's doing a tremendous job of being smart with it and understanding that sometimes a throwaway is a better thing than trying to force one. Or even, he's done a nice job the last few weeks of running the ball. So
yeah, his mobility is coming into play.
That's been really good.
Is he faster than you guys realize on that touchdown run? I'll be honest, I was like, I didn't think he was reaching the end zone there.
I think he's game speed, like, hey, blow the whistle, let's get somewhere and get down or get out of bounds or score. But he's done a really good job. My hat's off to him for it.
I know it's been a couple years now. Completely different staff has come in and left since then. But what's it going to be like going back to Reno this weekend?
I was telling the quarterbacks this morning, I was like, I wonder how many words are going to get thrown my way as I walk out for this game. But we still have a lot of really good friends in Reno, and we enjoyed our time in Reno, and those people that we got to know, we call our friends, we really call them family. But it's a little bit emotional because we were there for 5 years, but now we're 3 years removed and we're here, and we love our home here, and we love Colorado State. And to be honest, there's not that many guys left on the team that were guys that we really recruited or coached, and so it's just another game for us.
What kind of growth have you seen from them versus last year? They're obviously a lot more competitive. It's a lot of different guys, but just what's been the biggest difference for them?
I think Coach Cho's doing a great job of coaching them. I think they play hard. I think they're well coached. They're in the right spots, and they don't give up. And so it's good to see where they've been. And you look at their schedule, all the games they've really lost, pretty much all of them other than Hawaii, they've been right down to the wire with the team they played. So we got to go take care of business and be smart.
Got to take care of business and be smart. I kind of glanced over this before we got to the interview. This was something I wanted to hit on, was just whether this is still not a rivalry, but whether there's still bad blood. I think Nevada fans will forever hate CSU, understandably so. I'm not going to sit here and be like, you shouldn't hate the Rams. I mean, we would too. If you lost your coach, your entire staff, really, and the future of your program walked out to a team in your own conference, like that's not something that you're just going to get over very quickly. They will never forgive CSU for that, and I understand it. I would point out that the Nevada administration is largely at fault. Jay has been really honest since he came over about, institutional support, resources, being a big factor. He was constantly losing quality assistant coaches there. Didn't have a practice facility. I mean, there's just large gaps between Nevada and the rest of the conference in terms of the way that they support football. They're more of a hoop school, similarly to New Mexico. And I guess one of the things that I find just a little bit funny, given the fact that, again, while I understand why Nevada fans hate CSU, why they're holding on to this so intensely, is that Jeff Choate, who I think is a great hire, has very publicly expressed a lot of the same frustrations that caused Norvell to leave. They're a basketball school first and foremost. Here's a quote from an article from Nevada Sportsnet, great local site. They cover all things Nevada. Candidly, I think I understand some of the challenges that frustrated Coach Norvell. That was one of the reasons why when the opportunity came, he was going to take advantage of it. I think I'm in a different situation. I'm not going to say that I'm going to retire here, but I do know this. I'm going to get this place right. And if I'm 59 and a half when I do, and I can start drawing on my 401k, I'll ride off into the sunset, or they'll tell me to take a leap. And either way, I'm good. But I'm going to give this place everything I have. I'm not going to back down from a challenge. That's what these kids deserve. I'm going to give it to them. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what the future holds. I think I'm in a different position than Jay. I think Jay recognized he'd probably squeezed as much out of this place as he could at the moment. And it was time for him to take on a new challenge, and good for him. A lot different than what we heard from Ken Wilson a couple of years ago, who really leaned into the woe is us. You're such a meanie for leaving mentality. It's not surprised his tenure ended up being a joke. Later on, Cho also added that, they want to consistently compete for championships, that they're, fighting a war on a number of fronts here, which I found to be pretty poignant. To me, that's basically emphasizing you want this program to be a factor in the Mountain West. You want to compete at the highest level, but institutionally, you don't back football the way that's necessary for that to happen. And I don't know. I mean, again, like I'm not saying that Nevada fans should just forgive CSU or anything like that, but I am telling you, until they really take themselves seriously as a football program until they, put the money there, it's going to continue to happen. Coaches are going to continue to leave. It's going to be a struggle to maintain any type of success there because that's not how you keep quality coaches. One of the things I've talked about on the basketball side for CSU, you want to keep a coach like Niko Medved around. It's not just about increased salary, guys. It's assistant pool. It's the type of resources, how many times a year are you able to charter? What type of, support system are you able to provide? What type of, resources and food and all these small things that you might not factor into the equation are massively important for maintaining and sustaining success. And I just find it kind of interesting that Choate is basically saying all of the same things that Norvell said, but you're not seeing the same disdain from Nevada fans. While I understand your hatred for the Rams, I would maybe reflect inwards a little bit and start, taking a look at the mirror and looking at what's happening institutionally. I mean, nobody knows as well as CSU fans what it's like to have the wrong admin and the wrong people at the top making the calls. It's really refreshing to have top to bottom an admin from the president's office down that very much believes in the importance of athletics, that believes in, being bold and taking risks and really just not being content with the status quo, which has been, I think, an issue for Nevada. I think it was an issue for CSU in the Joe Parker tenure. And it's something that, it's just hard to sell to the fans. But I will say, I don't think there's going to be the same type of hostility on the field. I think this is a big game for a guy like Avery Morrow. I think he'll have some big juice, and he was obviously, awesome in that trip to Reno a couple years ago. Jacob Gardner, he's a starter there. It's a little bit different. BFN was committed to Nevada. Does he have a little bit more going in that one? Maybe. I don't think as much as a guy like Torrey Horton would. But then, I mean, you only have 6 players that you originally brought over out of the 11, 7 now that you've added Isaiah Sissima. I think Nevada has like 14 players that played under Norvell. Shout out to Nevada Sportsnet for those numbers. But, like the fans, they'll be hostile. They'll be talking a lot of trash. I think I saw somebody in the Toyota chat, Paquette here, say that it's going to be a sold out crowd. I don't think it will. I don't think there's that type of community support for Nevada football. I don't think they care. I think that's part of the reason why Norvell left is there's just, outside of the small minority, the couple of loud folks you'll hear on Twitter that are still talking a lot of trash. I don't think there's a ton of local support. That's not to say that it's irrelevant. That's not to say that it won't be a hostile place. The people that are there will be loud, but I don't think it'll be a sellout. That would surprise me. Maybe. I'll admit if I'm wrong Saturday post game. We'll see. Big time matchup for the Rams. You have an opportunity to, really, if you're Norvell on an individual level, I think accomplishing bowl eligibility at this stage of the season, on the road against your old school, going to 3-0 against them, I think that would be very satisfying. I think that would, validate much of why he came to CSU in the first place. And, for the Rams, this is an opportunity to seize the moment and keep a decent shot to play for a Mountain West championship alive. I mean, look, I think Boise is going to be a tough matchup if you can even get to that title game. It's a long road to even get there. You got to win 4 challenging games for you even get there. All tough for different reasons. But you had an outside chance here, which is not something you've been able to say as a program for a long time. You don't necessarily have the added motivation like you would against an Air Force or a Wyoming. But pushing for the postseason, I mean, that should be something that motivates these guys. Sorry about that. That's about all I've got, I think, for today. Losing my voice here, but we will be going live again tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. We'll play more interviews from this week. Offensive line coach Bill Bess, cornerback Dom Morris, kind of talking about the continuity between the defensive line and the secondary and their symbiotic relationship. When the D line has success, that means the guys in the back end are going to have success, and vice versa. You can have coverage sacks. I thought he was really insightful. It was an interview I enjoyed very much. If you are not a DNVR diehard, now's a great time to become one with our promo special, just $4 a month. You get a free shirt at sign up. You get access to all my written content. I'll have a couple of pieces coming out before that Nevada game. Obviously, plenty of post-game coverage as well. Going live Friday at 10 a.m., going live Saturday night post-game. TBD on that time, dependent on how long the game takes, probably 10-ish, I would guess. But really big weekend for the program. There's no doubt about that. And I'm excited for next week to really get into the swing of things on the basketball side. Dylan in the Toyota chat wants to know, do you think this is a game Jay would be more inclined to try to pour it on? I think if Ken Wilson was there, he'd have more incentive to try and pour it on. There was legitimate beef there. I think this is about just winning, getting past this game, getting to the border war, which obviously matters so much more to CSU fans. I think this is deceptively maybe a tougher trip than the Fresno game, just because of the added pressure of, like trying to take down your old school. Like, I do think this is one that Jay wants in a major way. Like Nevada would love to play spoilers and rain on our parade. But I don't think there's like incentive to, make it ugly or something like that. I would love to see it, not because I have animosity towards Nevada, but because I want to see this offense take it to the next level. I think they've had a couple of opportunities to blow teams out, and they have kind of let their foot off the gas at times, left the door open, however you want to phrase that. It'd be nice to see CSU pour it on someone, especially, going into this last month. That would be, highly encouraging going into the bye week before you have the border war. But again, I think it's more of a media storyline at this point than an actual, dynamic that'll be a big factor in this game. But I guess we'll see. Maybe it'll be much more intense, much more hostile than I anticipate. That's all I've got for you guys. Much love to everybody in the Toyota chat. Shout out to everybody that continues to support the content. Means the world to me. Going to do everything I can to keep you guys up to date with all things CSU hoops, CSU football. Produce all the content I can for you. Much love, y'all. Always proud to be. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.